I mean, people seem to want more and more and more. So I guess logistically, it's gotten pretty involved.
Mm-hmm.
But conceptually, let's say, for example, a show like The Walking Dead comes out. What like Andrew Breitbart would say something like, I forget how he put it, the narrative or something is downstream of culture.
Yeah.
Or politics is downstream of culture or something. And so basically, just keep your ear on the ground for what's going on culturally. And if the season premiere of Walking Dead is coming out, or the Oscars, and millions of people are going to watch it, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to do something, and maybe the Hollywood Reporter or Variety or someone will pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some very real thinking in that regard, I guess. It helps that people see it. So then you just think in terms of concept. I mean, in terms of The Walking Dead, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's a character named Negan,
mm-hmm.
and he was like, give me 50% of your shit or I'll kill you. and the Democrats are pretty much the same way. So it's like, boom, it almost created itself. Or like when Lena Dunham is accusing people of rape culture in college, and then the Rolling Stones magazine is accusing some Virginia Tech or whatever people of rape, and that was a lie as well. It almost, that one piece almost created itself. I mean, I'll just do a Rolling Stone cover with Lena Dunham on it, and so that's kind of the process. I try and stay in tune with what's going on, in society, I guess.
Yeah.
And I understand the politics behind it. So, and it's just a very simple marriage sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do sit here and you really trudge for a good idea. And, you trudge for a good idea, but, fortunately for me, because it's what I love doing and it is what I understand, it's pretty easy. And, I call it like a 24-hour turnaround. It's like come up with an idea, create it on my computer, produce it off the printer, get it on the street, take photographs, submit it to publication, and have it online within 24 hours.
Gotcha.
Which is a hell of a turnaround.
I can imagine. I was watching a video of you kind of in action. You were doing one of your installations, and I get the sense that some street artists enjoy the risk and enjoy the sort of the tension of getting caught or people, kind of interrupting. Watching you, I think you struck me as a little bit different. You don't want to get caught. You want to you want your stuff to get up there, but you're not sort of enjoying the risk. Is that fair to say?
It might be fair to say that I don't enjoy doing it. It's like I got a guy that helps me all the time, and the strange thing is, I mean, a lot of times when we're wrapping up, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I do this for a living. It's just what I do, and I feel so pathetic and this and that. But then, I make news in London. What I do shows up in London the next day, or here in LA, or Glenn Beck picks it up, or any number of people pick it up. And then, you've got all kinds of people say, oh, you're my hero, oh, you're a genius. And then all of a sudden that kind of picks you up. You're like, okay, there's purpose to what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Of course no one wants to get caught. But I mean, it's like, the last hit that I did, I believe it was this Donald Trump one, I quite literally did it with a sheriff standing, 12 feet away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I just call for backup, they're going to come and pick you up. And it's like, there's a point to where you just say, you know what, fuck it, let's just get this done. And so I'm just cranking away, doing my thing, sheriff's standing behind me, backup is coming, and I'm just looking at the guys, I'm like, dude, we're here to do something, let's knock it out and get the hell out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And it was ridiculous, because we're surrounded by LAPD and the LA sheriffs, and when I was in Cleveland and Philadelphia, there were just miles of cops, and it was just ridiculous. So, I mean, the stress is there. I obviously don't like the stress,
mm-hmm.
but, I got to get that photograph, because the left is really quick to tear my stuff down. And for those people who own those installations, just know that I'm probably not going to put those up anymore, because they just come down way too fast. People know how to take them down. Mm-hmm. And I devised a way to hang them up high, and those tend to stay up a little longer. But I don't know. It's a learning process. Things change. Obviously, I don't like the thought of getting caught. For the longest time, everyone covered their faces and things like that. Banksy does it. Everyone's like, "Oh, be more like Banksy," and it's like, why the hell would I want to be like Banksy? Be like Shepard. And it's like, I'm not Shepard. I don't know what to tell you. And when the Secret Service knocks on your fucking door, there's a pretty good chance the authorities know who you are.
That's right. Have you found it easier to monetize in the last couple of months or even years, just given your higher profile?
It's funny. I was looking at my computer the other day. I was looking at a file. I remember some guy use the word monetize. It was one of the first times I heard it, and I was thinking, how am I going to monetize this? But it'd been a handful of years. People showed me how to submit stuff to publication, and I was already getting attention, but not the same kind of attention. And as I started hitting more and more, these days you almost have people creating stories for you. I mean, if you go online, you'll see pictures of Mike Trump, him flipping people off, and they're like, "Oh, and he went to Washington, D.C. and covered the streets of D.C. with these posters." And then another reporter will read that story and report the same story. Mm-hmm. I never went to D.C. I did it in L.A., But it's like, once the reporters are all done doing what they do, I was in D.C., I was in Dallas, I was here, I was there, and I don't care. It's like, that is what that is, I guess.
Yeah. You said on your website in the interviews that you want to mimic the left. You're aggressive, you take no prisoners, and that's an approach that conservatives rarely do. When you're doing your art, do you sort of have lines you won't cross or things you won't do with what you show?
I don't put stuff up on people's walls, their personal property. Mm-hmm. I don't like spray paint or tag or anything like that. Anything I won't do, I guess there's a lot of things I won't do. I don't want to be a dick. But I think the rudest things that I could do is I'll just put down other people's art, because most of the artists there are socialists and communists, and the art reflects that. Or I'll call them out and say, hey, where have you been the past 8 years? While Obama's dropping bombs on wedding parties. No, I don't know. There's a few things I won't do, but I generally don't try and screw up people's property.
Yeah. Yeah, I was reading some reports, and you mentioned kind of the Secret Service. You've had some pretty rough stuff to say about President Obama, and you talk about the First Amendment. That's my privilege. Do you ever regret some of the stuff you do, or is it just sort of, I'm an artist, let it fly, and if it's ugly at the moment, then it's what I'm thinking? What's your approach there? Because I've got a pretty thick skin. I read some of the stuff you did. It was pretty intense, and I just want to get your comments on that.
I'd like to. Could you tell me maybe one? I can think of a couple, but do you have any on the top of your head?
I think it was a helicopter crashing with Obama in it, or something akin to that.
Oh, I'm just, that's just being mean, Okay. That's just straight out being mean. Uh-huh. And I really don't like the guy. I think it's strange that you could call me a conspiracy theorist, but I honestly believe he was probably born in Kenya. The guy is a Muslim, and because he happened to have black skin, he's a good-looking man. He was a good orator. At least he could read a teleprompter well. He looked good in a suit. Half of America just fell over themselves to vote him in for president. I mean, if he stood up and said, I was born in fucking Kenya, I hate this country, and I'm a Muslim, they still would have elected him. Mm-hmm. That's how pathetic it was. I think his entire agenda while he was in the White House was to destroy this country from within. Look what he did with race relations. It's just horrific now. Mm-hmm. And I have no reason to like him. I hope he died in a helicopter crash or whatever. People are always asking me about this one piece that I did, Fact and Nigger. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe you said the N-word. It's like, well, for one, I'm not 12. Two, I know how disgusting a word it is. Uh-huh. And the piece just mimics something I heard a gay man say.
Uh-huh.
Because, the black community didn't support the gay community against Prop 8. I think it was back in 2008. And the piece just reflects that. It doesn't reflect my, how I feel about that community.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, people use that piece and maybe a few other comments to label me a bigot or something.
Uh-huh. I want to just bring it real quickly. Madonna, in the last few days, mentioned about thinking about blowing up the White House. You've got people like Joss Whedon saying terrible things about Paul Ryan, and yet they don't seem to kind of get called on the carpet by the media. It's just sort of a kind of a tisk. Is there a double standard at work when you're sort of given tougher press coverage for things you say, and then they sort of get the kid glove treatment for what they say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look at Hillary Clinton, all the crap that she's done. She's not in jail yet. It's like with me, it was actually, I believe, a Fox News reporter that turned me in. So, I mean, people think, it was CNN or NPR or one of these other people or some hardcore lefty. No, it was a Fox reporter that turned me in. So it's like, of course there's a double standard.
Mm-hmm. When you think about pop culture and conservatism, I've been kind of railing for years, wherever I can write, that the big money folks have to pour more money into the work you do, into what, sort of conservative pop culture, and it's not happening. What's stopping someone from writing you a large check when you put out an installation and it gets massive coverage and it's shared and it goes viral? You would think that would be sort of money well spent, but it doesn't seem like that money is often spent.
I'm not that kind of a businessman, and I had a knock on the door from this other group of guys that kind of do what I do, and they're very good at going out there knocking on people's doors and saying, hey, I can do this, I can get coverage for this, and just pay me $15,000. I think they got up to $30,000, and they basically priced themselves out of work. But there are people who do drop that kind of money.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't pursue them. I wish they had it in them to knock on my door and leave a bag in front of the door. But every now I do have supporters that have supported me financially and such in the past, and I appreciate that. I guess it's just a matter of being more aggressive. I've got a ton of things to do on my plate, and that just never seems to factor its way onto my plate.
Uh-huh.
But I know I should, because I'm looking at some lights that I just bought the other day, and a lady paid for half of them. So it's like, I do have my supporters. Because I'm able to sell more these days, I don't ask as much as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's an important question that you bring up, because I remember I was militant about it in the very beginning. I was like, what the fuck are you people? Why aren't you supporting me? And, help me out a little bit, with some painting. And they did, they were always there for me. It wasn't quite like that. It's like I gave Breitbart a hard time because they wouldn't run my stories, but the Hollywood Reporter was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is the Hollywood Reporter running with my stories and Breitbart isn't? It doesn't make sense. I had this entitlement mentality, like, oh, you have to help me. But it's like, no, they don't have to help me. And people don't have, I was about to say people don't have to contribute to help my cause. But fact of the matter is, if we want to have any effect on this culture war, we have to support each other. And Rush Limbaugh, he kind of busts our balls about this kind of stuff. He'll go talk about NPR like, oh, we can't do what we do if you don't support us. It's like, it's nice that Rush made it, and I've always been one of those pull yourself up from the bootstrap kind of guys. I get it, and I'm not afraid of working. But fact of the matter is, the left has the Nobel Peace Prize. They have the Oscars. They have the Grammys. They have the Golden Globes. They have every possible way to pat each other on the back. They support each other every fucking way possible. And to think that we on the right aren't going to succeed without the same kind of support for each other is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just one aspect of it. The other aspect is the left, while we were asleep, took the schools. They took Hollywood, and we have to wake up and realize, hey man, we have to